Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Healthful Living and Fitness Education, Instruction, and Assessment Techniques, UNCW HFE Internship Prep. I am Jordan Weber. It is March 24th, 2025, and it's good to see everybody today. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you to the committee members, and thank you to the students that are here this morning. All right, so the presentation objectives, my goal is to get to know the students' internship aspirations. We're going to perform an instant activity. Then we're going to talk about instructional and assessment techniques, followed by research in the field of instruction and assessment, as well as best practices and practical application. The goal for you today is to be able to describe what you can offer at your internship. This is for the future interns. Be able to describe the differences between norm reference and criterion reference assessments, and to create a Q from the 3D Q model. All right, so today's agenda is to introduce myself, and then we're going to go over an activity called the missing piece activity. Um, we're then going to talk about instructional techniques. Then we'll have some recap, discussion, and questions about what we've learned. And then we'll end with assessment techniques before we close with questions. So, this is an introduction about myself. I have about 20 years of teaching, training, and coaching experience in adapted sport, public school, corporate health, mobility instruction, strength and conditioning. I published 3 articles, 3 grants accepted, and I've piloted 3 or 4 different research studies. I've had over 100 community partnerships, and I've been at 40 different presentations, or I presented at 40 different presentations in all 3 regional, local, and national levels. I've been part of camps, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. I've worked with individuals with disabilities, college, and athletes. I have a father, mother, a brother, 3 brothers. I'm a husband. I have 2 kids, and I'm a colleague here in the HFE department, and I am in Team SHAS, the School of Health and Applied Human Science. Here's a introduction video I created, going over a lot of the activities I've taught in my field. So hope you enjoy it. As you see, I'm showing you some flyers and some group photos. These are all different group photos. These are all different community groups I've worked with. I got my doctorate in educational leadership, um, but I've managed to apply physical and health education to the curriculum instruction and assessment concentration degree that I got here at UNCW. And so there's my mentor who helped me in this position that I'm in at now. That's Sue Combs. Um, and these are the things that I do with my students, presentations, yoga education programs, go outside, help people lose weight. Um, and I did a little bit of bodybuilding in the past. I've worked with Special Olympics. I've been to Belize before for an internship abroad, and that's us bowling with coconuts, me teaching yoga out on the docks, and all my different community groups at UNCW gym. So these are my favorite times that I like to share. Just showing you all the different atmospheres that I've taught in, like I showed you in these videos, uh, in the school setting, gym setting with elderly clients, youth settings, with athletes, out in the community. So it's been a pleasure to be able to work with so many different populations here in Wilmington for the past almost 15 years. All right, so what are the different sectors in health and fitness? So I've listed about 9 here. Go ahead and tell me what you're most interested in out of these 9. Are you interested in hospitality, community health, wellness and nutrition, small, large fitness, public or physical health. We could even add in things like physical therapy, OT. Um, Let me know what your aspirations are. Um, okay, what about you? Okay, you. Okay, what's your name? Okay, good. All right, so wellness is a $4.5 trillion market. Um, if you want to work in health and fitness, I believe that there is a solution for you. I mean, going back to this slide here, there's so many different avenues in health and fitness, and I've been in a lot of these fields. I've observed some of these fields before, and um, I think you can help people get healthy and fit in a lot of different areas. Doesn't have to be just one. So we're gonna play or we're gonna perform a task. So everyone pull out a piece of paper if you don't have one already. What I'd like you to do is first um, draw a circle with a missing piece. Okay, first put your job placement at the top. Then you're going to draw a circle with a missing piece and then write the words that the placement offered. So here's an example. I interned at Matt Skelly Training during my doctorate degree, and some of the things I learned or that I that was offered to me was instructional techniques, leadership skills, opportunity, growth, and marketing. And so that's what the internship offered me. So go ahead and write things down that you think your internship will offer you. And make sure you write the internship title at the top. So whether it's public schools, hospitality, physical therapy, personal training, group fitness, health coordinator, whatever position you think you'll be interning at, or think of a internship that you'd like to do, or a sector that you'd like to work in. So it doesn't even have to be an internship. Think about all the opportunities that you can get from this place and write them down. Going to give you about 30 more seconds to do that. So just write those words down, and I'm going to come around and take a look. All right. All right. So let's talk about some of those uh, sites and some of the words that you use to describe what the placement may offer you. And we're going to talk about that for another 30 seconds. Okay. Nice. Okay. And about 20 more seconds. Good. All right. Now, what do you think we're going to do with that missing piece there? What do you think that missing piece represents? Okay. Okay. Now, what will you do to fill the circle? What can you bring to your internship? So, write something that you think you could bring or offer to your internship. So, for example, I brought Train Us Forward Fitness to Matt Skelly Training. Okay, Train Us Forward Fitness was a nonprofit. We raised over $10,000 and we helped students with disabilities get jobs and become co-teachers of the class. And it lasted for about 3 years. My wife then took over, and then we had someone from the gym take over, and we kind of passed it down. I still believe they have an adaptive program. It might be more personalized now. Obviously, everything changed after COVID. So this was from 2017 to 2020. I was the president of Transport Fitness, which was a nonprofit. And I then gave it to Matt, who is the owner of Matt Skelly Training. So he may still be using these programs. He has the template for the class, and it was part of my dissertation that I'll be talking about tomorrow during my research. So stay tuned. All right, Let's go ahead and talk about instructional techniques. Now, you may have seen this before. This is 20 indicators of effective physical education instruction. This is a great shape evaluation assessment that administration can use to see if the teacher is performing the right task. I'll leave this presentation link and notes with you, so if you want to go back and look at any of these things, you can. I basically took a lot of the information that I'm going to be talking about and made that as a concept in a lot of these different instructional techniques and assessments that we'll talk about. So, we're going to talk about goals and objectives, basically the curriculum that you're going to choose or the program. We're going to talk about Alt, PE, and flow. So, how instruction can increase or decrease Alt, PE, and flow. And then we'll talk about feedback and clarity communication, which is going to be the most important aspect of instruction. So, goals and objectives. You have to first know your audience. This means getting to know their backgrounds, getting to know them personally, taking the time to get to know them, caring for them. And then it's about the goals of the curriculum, right? So in K through 12 setting, we talk about motor, cognitive, and affective objectives, which are based on developmental stages from shape learning outcomes. These shape learning outcomes dictate our curriculum, and we also use state standards. And so the goals and objectives are based on these standards, and so we work backward from there. So we determine what the grade level learning outcome is, or student learning, or the student learning outcome is, and then we just create some objectives or formative tasks that the student will perform, and they will then get some feedback and hopefully improve their skill through the use of these goals and appropriate learning. So in K through 12, elementary setting, I like skill themes. In the middle school setting, I like sport education. In high school, I like teaching games for understanding and health and skill related fitness. Um, Fitness and wellness, uh, personal training, wellness coaches, you're going to be creating goals and objectives based on personalized individual um, information. So, fitness and wellness goals are personalized based on individual goals such as weight loss, bone health, post-operation, 5Ks, or bodybuilding. So basically, what that means is, you know, your client is going to determine what their goals are, and you're going to help them get there. And so you want to follow the certifications from being a certified personal trainer, group fitness instructor, certified nutrition coach, or a National Wellness Institute certified coach. Follow the certifications. Your goals and objectives should come directly from the standards that are set by your professional organization. We are not covered by negligence. So doing things like dodgeball in PE, or having someone who shouldn't back squat and they get injured, we're not covered by that negligence because our certifications wouldn't teach us that. So you have to have with itness, is what I'm trying to say. All right. So this is a image of a SMART goal. All right. Goes from specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to time bound. And this helps us have a little bit of a pathway to success. And this pathway to success is structured, and it gives us motivation, which creates more success. So some examples would be, how long does it take you to sprint 30 yards from the green cone to the yellow cone as fast as you can? Don't run past the red cone. So it's specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic. Then how many dribbles with your left hand can you get in 10 seconds while skipping? Can you beat that number? How long does it take you to get 10 baskets from the 3-point line? Can you beat that number? So these would be some specific goals, okay, that are measurable, okay, and attainable, and they're mini targets as well. This what's going to help our students be motivated and enjoy what they're doing because if you're not keeping track of things, students aren't going to think you care at all. Research on learning targets and setting goal. So learning targets increase engagement and on-task behavior and success. Um, Goals increase enjoyment, motivation, performance, and in the K through 12 setting, after you evaluate goal needs, then you can create objectives and appropriate activities to reach the goal. And then the fitness and wellness needs analysis leads to your programming. So basically, what you learn about your client through assessment will lead to their programming. And so we'll take their assessment and we'll create goals, and this will lead to the type of program that we teach them. Academic learning time, or alt PE, and flow. So alt PE is basically active learning when a high success rate. Uh, Instructors must understand that fundamental exercise principles like differentiation, progression, and overload. You must understand these principles to make sure that we are designing appropriate progressions, and lateralizations for individuals. So, for example, if an individual can't do a full pull-up, what would you suggest? All right. So, what's going to be more successful? Full pull-up or a banded row? A banded row. Okay. So they're going to have more success. They're going to be more actively engaged, and they're going to have higher success rate. This is going to increase enjoyment. It's going to give them more of a flow state, and they're going to be less frustrated. In fitness and wellness, we call flow state, similar to LPE. Basically, is where you lose track of time and you are just in the moment. Has anyone here ever entered the flow state? And let's talk about that. Right? That's good. Nice. All right. So research on alt PE. Basically, studies have found that 50 to 70% of students were on task when you have alt PE. Remember, alt PE is just appropriate activity with a high success rate, okay, and minimal transition times with structure. Okay. So everything's kind of set for a purpose. When you don't have it, you can have 40% less of an effect. Okay. It leads to better motor skill development and fitness outcomes, which I think can be studied across the board, not only in phys ed, but in wellness and health. So if you are having a client work on a skill that is too tough for them, then you're less likely to get success and also enjoyment out of that. LPE promotes a positive learning experience because instruction is designed to increase on-task learning. So here's some examples of the way I plan. We use visuals, which is another instructional strategy, as well as structure and short time segments to um, keep people on task, but also let them know how long things will be lasting. Here's an example of swim, and here's an example of gym instruction. And this is a student visual, not to be mistaken with the lesson plan that I'll create or the student will create before they create the visual. Here's an example of a program for adults. Again, structured, specific, measurable, attainable, and it is all exercises that are functional, meaning that they can be progressed or regressed based on individual need. All right, so the third instructional technique is feedback and clarity. You cannot instruct without clear communication skills. Let me be clear here. Feedback has one of the highest effect sizes on learning. Feedback tied to goals increases alt PE. So if we are tying our feedback to specific goals, like good job, you only need to do, or instead of good job, that would be general. You could say, I like the way you shot the ball. two more to go. That's specific, and it's tied to a goal that they're trying to achieve. So this is going to increase learning, and it's going to increase uh, student engagement. Corrective feedback or specific guidance on how to fix errors, like bend your knees more during a squat, is highly effective because it directly addresses performance gaps. So you're talking about exactly what they need to do while they're doing the exercise, as opposed to giving them general feedback like, you need to do that better, or good job, even though they're not doing a good job, but you're just saying that because you don't know what else to say. Give them specific feedback, like bend your knees more during that squat. Okay. So specific feedback is gonna, and corrective feedback is gonna have more an effect than general feedback. General feedback has a low effect size. It fails to provide actionable information, leaving learners unsure of how to improve. It highlights that corrective feedback focus on fixing specific errors, like adjust your posture to keep your back straight. It's more effective than praise or punishment. So basically, we can learn a lot from corrective feedback. This basically is demonstrating if we have with itness. Are we there as a coach? Are we seeing what's going on? Are we there as a trainer? Are we there as a teacher? If we're not there, we're not going to be able to see these things going on. Some researchers have found that feedback focusing on the external rather than the internal is more effective. So things like task and outcome over body movements, like push the barbell toward the ceiling, as opposed to tighten your shoulders. So saying things like brace the core, or um, things like tighten your up is not as good as telling them what to do and where to go, because external cues direct attention to the goal, reducing cognitive load and enhancing motor learning. So it takes less stress off the brain. In K through 12, we kick the ball to the target. It's going to be more beneficial than swinging your leg harder. So here's some different feedback types. We have specific, corrective, external focused based feedback, and general feedback. Noticing that general feedback has the lowest effectiveness, fitness and wellness examples, and we have K through 12 examples. So let's look at corrective feedback. Bend your knee more while jumping. That would be corrective. Chest up during a squat. Perfect. And those both have effective learning curves. So they're going to increase learning with corrective feedback. External, which we'll get into later, and also the specific feedback as well, which would be telling them exactly what to do. All right, so some tips that Haiti and Temperley recommend. Um, they recommend that feedback answers three questions: where am I going? How am I doing? And where to next? For example, instead of nice stretch, say great stretch. Hold it for 5 more seconds to improve flexibility. Okay. Other types of tips: our words should be a spotlight, not a floodlight. So we shouldn't be flooding them with information. We should just be spotting things out. The best cue isn't universal, it's personal. So we don't use a universal cue for everybody. Everyone speaks in different languages. Avoid over cueing and saying too much. You just overload them. Again, speak in their language. So know how to communicate with them. And this comes through, getting to know them, obviously, in years and years of teaching. External cues leverage the environment. So, use the environment, shoot toward the grass over there, or, hit as far, punt the ball as high as you can up into the sky. These would be all external cues to help our learners think about the action instead of the words. All right, so here's an example. Load as you would if you were about to swing a softball bat. Other analogies created by reference tennis, golf, and hockey, just to name a few. Okay, explode. Whack the ball and burst the ball. Accentuate this analogy by verbalizing the whack and adding a clap when the ball hits the wall. Boom. Posture. Imagine a band is pulling you into the ground. Focus on getting as long as you burst through the band. So just think about trying to break the band. Okay. Loading. Load down and forward as you would right as you would right before hitting a ski jump or ramp. Okay. So you could just say ramp or load. So Winkleman created the 3D cueing model for a squat. Try to drive the floor apart as if splitting the earth. It's not just down, it's wide and forceful. Okay. Here, distance apart, direction down and wide, and description drive, splitting the earth combined to form a dynamic 3D cue that athletes can visualize and execute. So you can utilize this 3D cue to create effective external cueing for your athletes or your clients and help them become more successful as opposed to using internal cues. All right. So, what instructional strategy do you need to improve on the most out of all three of these? Is it feedback? Is it goal setting? Or is it getting them the appropriate activity? Talk about that for a little bit. What are other instructional strategies you've learned in your coursework? So, what are some other instructional techniques or strategies you've learned? Maybe things like direct or indirect instruction, um, positive in positive learning environment, those types of things. What assessment strategies are you familiar with? Okay, so we're going to move into assessment next. How do you assess children, teens, and adults differently? So, what are the different types of assessments? And what are the different types of assessments for K through 12 and wellness and fitness professionals? All right, so let's go ahead and begin going over assessment techniques. So, we're going to go over formative, summative, and self assessments. Formative assessments are basically the short-term objectives that you meet during the lesson. The summative assessments are long-term goals. These are your grade level learning outcomes that you should be meeting at the end of each grade level. And then you have self-assessments, which are my favorite form of assessment because it allows a learner to be empowered through self-reflection. So formative assessments in K through 12, formative assessments informs teaching. It's like a quick check. Think about naming two benefits of an exercise. Um, quick checks maintain Alt PE. So asking or assessing in the lesson increases that appropriateness and the student attention and engagement. Teacher observation, peer assessment, self-assessment, exit slips, class reflections, criterion reference assessments, skill-based assessments with rubric of criteria are all different types of um, formative assessments that we can use inside of our classes that we can um, initiate inside. So something like a peer assessment, having the students work together, that's helpful because it takes a lot of pressure off you. Peer assessments are more private. Exit slips give the teacher reflection on how the lesson went. You have criterion reference assessments. These are things like TGMD or locomotor object control skills that can be broken down into a rubric or task analysis. We can assess ourselves, we can have others assess us, or we can have teacher observations. So all of these are different types of formative assessments. In fitness and wellness, real-time observation ensures safety observe. So observe safety form during an exercise. This is really important because if they see that we're paying attention to them and focusing on their actual body mechanics, they'll understand that we're being as safe as we can, and our clients are going to appreciate that. We want to model and demonstrate the appropriate form as well. So making sure that if we are assessing them, that we model and demonstrate the appropriate form. Otherwise, we're setting them up for disaster. Formative assessments dictate exercise selection and load. So based on these mini checks, it's going to dictate how much load you should put on the bar or what type of exercise you should choose next. So these mini assessments, anytime you can observe them during an exercise or have them do an activity, we're basically using this time to assess them. So here's a criterion reference formative assessment. This is also a formative assessment that we can use so students can perform the stationary kick. All right, here is a trial 1 and 2, and you get 1 or 0. This student scored a 2 out of 2, 4, 6, 8. So the student got a 2 out of 8 here. They need help with a rapid continuous approach. They need to take a long stride, and the non-kicking foot gets a little bit close, and they kick with slightly the instep. So these are some things that the individual has to work on specifically. A little bit less here. Scored a 2 out of 8. So this is someone who is at a utilization or a kind of like uh, more of a immature skill level. Here's a norm reference formative assessment. So students can look at their uh, push up or sit up and see what it compares with in their age and sex. And so these are called norm reference assessments because they take information across the board from your same gender or sex, and then you're able to see where you fit in. Formative and summative, so the FMS assessment, if you've heard of this for mobility, you can do this as a warm-up. So you could choose one of these as a warm-up just to see where the client is at, or you could do this all together as a summative test. So some of these exercises are good warm-up skills, and you can also use them as a kind of target to see if you can score better the next time. Another formative test is seeing what skill level you are at in jump rope. So here's a grade level. How many jumps can you do in a row? If you're able to do 10 in a row, you're a white belt. If you're able to do 60 in a row, you're a purple belt. So basically, it informs the instructor of where the student is at that day. Summative assessments are basically goals. So summative assessments in K through 12 um, assess student learning outcomes which demonstrate teaching effectiveness. So when we're looking at summative goals, we're looking at the student learning outcomes from SHAPE or the state. And so this is going to demonstrate if the teacher's being effective or not. Some other fitness tests like the fitnessgram are norm reference based, and the TGMD are both norm reference and criterion reference, and we can use these at the beginning and end of the year to see if the individual has advanced. In fitness and wellness, we measure progress such as body fat, weight loss or gain, strength endurance, cardiorespiratory fitness, glucose levels, lipid levels, blood pressure, resting heart rate, sleep, steps, and power. So we can measure these things pre and post, and we can also look at these things formatively as well. So not just summatively, but a lot of times, you might get a yearly check like a lipid level, a glucose level. You're not doing those things every day. NCSF assessments, FMS, are also can be used for summative assessments. All can be measured and reported yearly or every 6 months. So self-assessments, these are going to be self-reflections, and they're going to help individuals develop self-awareness and motivation. In K through 12, think about rate your energy for today or rate your dribbling skills. Use this chart. Fitness or wellness, log your meals, sleep, and exercise for the day. Self-assessments build self-regulation and motivation. They are private, and they help learners understand and know what they need to do to be successful, and puts the accountability on the learner. So here's an example of some assessments for wellness and fitness. So these are specific, measurable, and attainable goals here for wellness. And then we have some fitness goals and questionnaires that will allow them to self-assess and provide themselves with goals to help the instructor learn what they're going to be doing summatively. So, final words here. Um, get to know your audience, create standardized base goals based on your credentials. Don't just make it up. Keep it super simple if you can. Make sure you have clear, concise, and correct communication with your audience. Provide great demonstrations. I can't state that enough to make sure that you're getting good demonstrations. Assess, don't guess. Make sure that you're writing things down and you're creating specific formative and summative goals. Love what you do and be kind. You never know what people are going through. Some people are going through a lot, and as an instructor, a teacher, trainer, a coach, a lot of times you're the only one that is actually listening to them. So I'll end it there with any questions. All right. Here are my references. I have some more information on assessment types and effective instruction. These are some good topics you can explore in the future. All right. Thanks a lot.